are unusual things in life that can help you trace your family roots. Some of them include coffin quilts, something called fracture. To find out all about this, we have Miss Holly T. Hansen, a Gen teacher and president of Family History Expos, back on the show. And she's been sitting in with us on our third Friday Family History Show today as co-host as well. Always fun to have her sit in on these conversations because, she's been doing this for years. She knows it.
Mm-hmm.
And go to her website, familyhistoryexpos.com. You can also read her articles and listen to her past interviews in Big Blend Radio and TV Magazine, as well as Parks and Travel Magazine, or their websites. Best thing, just go to bigblendmagazines.com. It'll connect you to everything. And she has an article on this topic of today, unusual sources, and you'll be able to get that in the next issue of Big Blend Radio and TV Magazine. But hey, Holly, are you having fun?
I am, and that was an unusual source that we got to talk about. Just
I know. The
amazing.
Mound Builders with Sufia Giza. Everyone, you'll find that up as soon as we archive the show and everything up on blendradioandtv.com. To me, I think this is so fascinating where family history takes us, right, in solving that mystery. But I never knew that things like a coffin quilt can help you, and I didn't even know that is even a coffin quilt. I mean, that there is even such a thing.
Such a thing. I didn't always know about them, but I found them fascinating. They were created mainly in the 1800s, at least that I'm aware of it. It could have been something that was passed down from some earlier time, but mostly I'm aware of them in the 1800s. Mortality was real, mothers and babies died easy in those early times when they didn't have the benefit that we have today with antibiotics and hospitals and things. But they're sometimes called mourning quilts, M-O-U-R-N, to mourn.
Mm-hmm.
Mourning quilts, graveyard quilts, or cemetery quilts. But they are in the center. Just think of a quilt, and in the very center of it, there's a maybe black or dark brown square, and then there's a decoration around that, and then on the outside edge they have appliqued or sewn on little coffins.
Wow!
And they sometimes
so real coffins, like wooden, they made like.
Yeah.
I don't want to
say
of a coffin.
The shape of a coffin. You think of, the old Western movies, and here comes the coffin on the back of and they have that shape, narrow at the bottom, and then kind of,
Wow.
Yeah, they'd put them on there, and they would have the names of their family members. And when a family member would pass away, they'd take that off the outside edge and sew it into the center, which was a graveyard, which was.
Oh, wow.
And they did that as part of the mourning. But, I mean, I've heard that these coffin quilts were given as bride gifts. It was blank, you get married, this is your, and then
wow.
Because mortality was real, people died, and they, we don't see it as often as what, if you go through old cemeteries, how many, you see these grave markers for very young people. We just don't see that as much unless there's a tragedy that happens. We just don't see that as much. And in the South, especially, the South was more kind to women, and that's probably one reason it was the matriarchal area, but it was not uncommon for a woman to be married 4 or 5 times. The average lifespan, I don't want to say lifespan, but the average marriage in colonial times in the South was 7 years. And that was because one or the other of the spouses died. But, they were clearing off. There were a lot of swamps and malaria and things like that. And the men were out there working in it. They would die. The women would marry again. So most children were raised by a step parent or even 2. They were orphaned. They had half siblings. They had step siblings. They raised their own siblings. It was a tough time. And
Wow.
This is how the women mourned. I can remember growing up, my mother and my grandmother, they would quilt. I'd sit on the floor under the quilt, and when babies were born, they'd make quilts. When somebody died, they'd make quilts. It was a way to get through. I think people still do it today as a form of comfort, to make a homemade quilt and give it as a gift.
Yeah, because it's kind of it's a personal thing to do, you know. It's like it's time alone where you can deal with it, but it's in this creative way and thoughtful way, you know.
Right.
Did they put the
cemeteries started becoming more prevalent in the 1800s as well. Remember, they used to have this little family burial spots. Everybody had their own little family burial spot in the 1800s, and especially in the cities, it was a problem, and so they would set aside this land for burials, and they made them like parks, and they had pathways, and cemeteries were not scary. These were places people went and had picnic lunches, and they strolled through the cemeteries. They were more like a park, and so it's interesting to see all of the ways that death was treated in that time period. Quite different than today.
Did they keep the quilts and maybe hand them down to relatives, or did they put the quilt in the coffin? Like do a quilt that was in the coffin of the person that passed?
A quilt that would go in the coffin. They did create quilts that went in the coffin. Today we see it's quilted inside the coffin, but they're done, they're manufactured. But historically, they did make the quilts that lined the coffin, but that's not the same thing I'm talking about.
No, the same thing. Okay.
The coffin quilts that I'm talking about have people's names embroidered on them, family members. And these were treasured. These were kept. These were handed down. You can see them in museums. Sometimes they have them. If you Google graveyard quilts or coffin quilts, you'll see examples of them that are in museums and historical societies. But they're family heirlooms that people don't throw those away. That was the only record in early times. If you're talking about early time periods, birth records and death records weren't required, and maybe that's the only place it was recorded. But we see this more in the South than we see up north. But they would embroider the names of their family members, and when they passed, they'd sew that little coffin into the graveyard in the center of the quilt.
It's almost like a charm bracelet in a weird way. I don't mean it as a charm when people die, but there's kind of like when something special, you add a charm. If someone graduated, you have the graduation charm, that kind of thing. So it's kind of in that format of adding to it. But I think it's a very therapeutic way of dealing with death, like you were saying, that helps you, handle your grief in a positive way. I just had no idea. So
So as people moved from being buried in the backyard, the family plot there in the backyard, to these rural cemeteries, because in the cities they're not close. You have to go somewhere to the cemetery. These little coffin quilts was their way of keeping them close to home.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of your own way of that connection in there. It's interesting when you think about the cemeteries and, just the things we've been seeing lately and experiencing. We went to one, and there was a row of little crosses, and this was all little babies, all on a hill in a row from the family in the same time. So they must have had like some kind of fever or something. Yeah. And it was just like you stand there and you're like, oh, wow, this is like one whole family wiped out in one time frame. I don't know what could have happened. And the lady we were with, this was in Zwali, where the tamales come from that we were talking about. It is on the site of an old mission, which is also part of the El Camino Real de los Tejas National Historic Trail. So it's all about the royal roads, with the Spanish coming through, and so we were on those grounds, and she was talking about that they don't have records of any kind of disease spreading through that region during that time frame. There's no record of it that they know of now, right now. So we were wondering, like, could it have been an attack? Could it have been a fire? It could have been anything, So you start to, you start to feel like you worried. I don't know. It's an interesting thing how cemeteries and death opens your eyes to caring more, of what's happened in the past, even if you're not related. It's interesting.
Yeah, it does.
It's not all, and you say it's depressing, but on the other hand, I remember my grandmother had what she called her hope chest. It was oak, and wherever she lived, it was always at the foot of her bed. And then she had all these things wrapped up in it. And every once in a while, she would spend an hour or two showing us all the different things that were in there. And there were things that her parents had given her and the whole thing was people gave her stuff so that when she got married, she would have things to remember them by. And she got married at 13, which is interesting. She came from England, married my grandfather. He was from the Isle of Man. She was from York in England. And they sailed over here to the States and made a home. And she's probably one of the youngest brides ever in the United States. Go, Nana. She had her hope chest, and she had all little bits of cloth and embroidered handkerchiefs and figurines and all different little things. And now I don't even know what happened when she passed away. I wasn't in the country. I don't know who ended up with the hope chest. But those things really meant something to her. And every once in a while she'd bring them all out, usually around Easter or Christmas. She'd go back and go through she had the little silver spoons, and this was the spoon that my mom had when she was a baby. All these things stuffed into this one chest. And the idea was every woman young girl before they're about to get married, somebody in the family should or would give them a hope chest. It's interesting, these traditions. And I think that some of the quilts would be in there because they always line the bottom with some kind of tapestry or quilt. So it's interesting how this works.
I had a hope chest as a young girl. I was 17.
You?
My mother and father gave me a hope chest for my birthday, and when I graduated high school, many of the women who were my mom's age or older gave me handmade things to go in my hope chest, like pillowcases that were embroidered and
cool.
Just different kinds of things that I could use when I got married. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Cool. I don't think we do that so much today.
I know. No, now we have Facebook and Pinterest. How scary is that?
Yeah, you take it with you when you pass.
Yeah, we were given gifts to help us, and the young people now give us a list of what they want.
Oh yeah, or now we have
what color
cash
and
cards,
all of
right?
that,
Gift cards. Oh, that Visa cards.
Here's
the
your Visa card.
Yeah, really. This fracture thing. This is it. So this is it Latin? You're German? I was interested in this.
Yeah, very
I've never heard of this
very
either.
good. It's Latin, German, yeah.
Cool.
At the end of the 15th century, most Latin books in Germany were printed in a dark, barely legible Gothic style known as textura. And what little was printed in German was rougher and was a more base Schwabacher type. But when the German Emperor Maximilian reigned from 1493 to 1517, he decided to establish a splendid library of printed books. And this is where it started with Fracture. And Fracture means fractured, it's broken. So when you see Fracture, it is a script that is, the T doesn't touch the top of it. And you can look it up and see a lot of them online. We often in the U.S. today we hear people call it as a art form Pennsylvania Dutch or Pennsylvania German.
Folk art.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Folk
have to.
art. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to look it up. When we were in Santa Fe, we went to the International Museum of Folk Art, and that's a mind blowing place. I needed like days in there, and I couldn't. It. You just there were wall hangings with yeah, and you
Mhm.
talk about that in your article, wall
Mm-hmm.
hangings and things like that. I'm gonna go look and see if we have Frector in there. If I took any photos of Frector, that would be
Yeah,
cool.
it's a calligraphy. It's a calligraphy. Now, so it was a Catholic. Maximilian was Catholic, right? So when the Reformation took place and swept across Germany, and the propaganda's coming out, much of the material was printed in this new Frochter, and it allowed people to discern the difference between Catholics and Protestant publications,
Oh,
because the
Oh,
Protestants
wow.
printed German using Frochter, and the Catholics used Latin. So it's
Of
very
course. Yeah.
interesting to see how you just these little clues to your family history that you're missing. They're all around you, but you don't even realize it. And so you've seen in people's homes now they use vinyl lettering and they stick it on the wall. It's like established. Hansen family established
mm.
2013 or whatever, but they used to embroider these things and
Mhm.
do family trees and hang them on the wall, or they would paint them or draw them, or there's just a lot of different ways that they use this alphabet. But it is a Latin alphabet, but it was Proctor just changed it a little bit, and it's interesting that it was perpetuated through religious means as that Reformation took place, as it first came out into the world. But it is called folk art, and you can see. I have seen many samplers. The young girls would learn to do their handiwork, and they'd make samplers, and they'd put their names on it. And there's family names that are embroidered with birth and death dates, and they do certificates. I don't know if you've ever seen, a lot of these pre-printed certificates. Even today, someone will take and have a good calligrapher fill it out because it's more beautiful in that handwriting.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
that's an unusual form, but sometimes there'll be family history on these, and they're framed and hanging in somebody's house. You can buy them at the flea market. I mean, you can buy them at yard sales that people are
Wow.
just getting
Well,
rid of stuff like family Bibles and things that's kind of interesting.
I think
But
that's what
there are whole
happens
books
to a
written
lot of
on it.
things. Yeah, I think this happens to a lot of things, that things are passed down in families, and where they originated was where people really cared about what they were doing, and then as the families, progress and new people come into the family, traditions change. Sometimes to incorporate new members of the family, and sometimes people move more than they used to, and that part of that bonding goes away, and then things end up in pawn shops and flea markets. You can find some
Mm-hmm.
really interesting things there if you know what to look for.
Mhm.
If you
What
don't.
about
Yeah,
what
exactly.
about tombstone art with this? Do you think that Frector is used on tombs? I'm stuck in cemeteries, Holly. I'm sorry. It's a new type of park for me. Um, they're
Yeah,
peaceful.
it could be.
Mhm.
I would imagine. I'm just trying to think with all that I've done. I'm sure I've seen Proctor
Mm.
um,
Mm. The
used.
third thing you talk about is marks and brand registers. Is this kind of like almost like when you open a business or you patent something, or you create your logo, that kind of thing? That it was registered in a
Really,
point.
branding today, we really think about marketing. That's
Mhm.
what
That's the
really
first
comes
thing my
to your
brain.
mind.
I'm that
Right.
way.
Hmm.
Mm.
But the term comes from the Old Norse word brander, or to burn, and it refers to the practice of branding livestock.
Mhm.
And it goes back for centuries. It goes back for a long time. So before the modern world that we lived in, people raised animals,
Mm.
cattle and horses, and they had to have some way to mark them to keep them separate from their neighbors. They didn't always
Mhm.
have fences, and at the end of the season they had to separate them and divide them up, and so that's how they could tell them apart. Well, even today, you're still required by law to register your brand. And if you don't keep it up, I think they're good for 10 years. And if you don't keep paying the money, someone can steal your brand. And if they have your brand, they can steal your cattle, which is, a livelihood
Well, and
for people that.
wrestlers did that because they were artistic and they branded over the original brand. They just put a curve here and changed the first person's brand to their brand. I saw it on Bonanza.
Oh,
Yeah,
Nancy.
well,
What about
they did do things like that. So
They did.
what?
history is
What about
fascinating and
wax?
all kinds of used for all kinds of movies, isn't it?
What
Yeah,
about
and then
wax? When they do the wax stamp on letters.
oh, so you could put your crest, your family crest. You
Oh yeah.
press it
Well, there are
into
a
the
lot.
wax.
There are a lot. I mean, we could start talking about coats of arms, their family history. Most people
Mhm.
they tell a story.
Mhm.
There is whole books written on how to read a coat of arms. It is a story. It's very fascinating, and most of us are clueless what it means. It's like, oh, this is. Somebody will say, do you have the Thompson coat of arms? Do you have the Hansen coat of arms? They don't really know what they're all about and what they entail and the stories that are told. But there are people who spend their whole life studying those that I kind of follow on LinkedIn. I have a connection, a guy that creates those crests and coats of arms for people to do their own story.
That's interesting. That's interesting
the
because
Scottish
also
Games people do that.
the Highland Games, when you go there, you'll find people where you can buy your crest on T-shirts and things like that.
And I can explain them to you.
Yeah,
don't talk about that around really hardcore genealogists because it's very it bugs us.
It doesn't. Oh,
because
let's do a
maybe
show on
not,
it, right?
Just to see what happens.
Oh, cool.
No, I'm kidding.
No,
they're given by royalty to someone, and it's for that person. It's not. They're not inherited.
Oh.
It has to be. It has to be like so. If you know about primogeniture, the oldest son gets everything. That it's and if you don't have that same relationship with the king or the feudal lord or whoever it is, it's so when you put these coats of arms, it's not really your coat of arms, and so it's a whole. I think they're fine, and I think it's wonderful. And if you can identify one that belonged to an ancestor, I'm okay with people hanging those in their homes. But people that are real picky, it bugs them, and it's funny because here in America we don't have that royalty thing, so we look at it very different than they do in Europe.
Well, so do you think it's like when Sir Elton John gets to keep his Sir, but the rest of his family, his children, don't get to use the Sir? You know what I mean? Hey,
That's
listen.
right. That's right.
I love me some Elton John. Okay, so but so that's
it really is
interesting.
true.
So,
the title's not necessarily it's not inherited, and so that's why so many of the people came to America. As if David Hackett Fisher wrote a book, Albion Seed, Four Folkways to America, and he talks about where the different people came to the different areas. And in the South, it was mostly the royal families. It was the younger sons who couldn't inherit, so they came here. They were still very well trained, and but here they could have land. They could have the property.
Because the first son gets
that's how
everything.
the colony started.
Yeah. The first son gets everything, and the rest of the kids is too bad for you.
Right. So I did include with this handout a nice colonial document that was from Georgia, colonial Georgia, that's before the American Revolution, and it shows you the marks and brands. If you can read the old handwriting, it's very cool. But it'll say right in the document. Let me pull it up here so I can kind of read it to you because it's kind of fun. It in the margin of the book, they have drawn the brand, so you know exactly what it looks like. This is their brand. And then in the descriptive, they say whose brand it is and what the marks are. And the marks might be 2 slits on the right ear or something, a clip. But they marked their ears and they branded them. And this was how they could tell their cattle apart, their animals. And these books have been, they've recorded, and they sometimes give family relationships.
This is interesting because now the brands, these brands go down and down, and even now when you go out through the West and you go on cattle ranches and things, it's even part of their letterheads. It's part of their, it's on their belt buckles. It's part of the fencing, and
right. You see, you do see it more here in the West because we still have cattle ranches and we still have those kinds of things. Like in the book here, William Dunham Jr., son of William Dunham of Newport, entered and recorded his earmarks being a crop and a slit in the left ear and an upper halfpenny on the upper end of the right ear, and his brand as shown in the margin, Savannah, Georgia, the 7th of June.
Wow.
1757.
Now we get chipped instead of branded. Yeah, stop it. It's true. Animals are getting chipped. No, but we've gone into digital branding. Yeah. It is a true thing.
Well, there are people
what about
who want humans
Holly?
to be chipped.
Yeah, wouldn't you think a signature? People get to know a certain signature, and that because some signatures do not look like your name written out.
Sometimes in the records, that's the only way to tell the difference between multiple men of the same name, multiple individuals of the same name, is by their signature. You can recognize who they are. It's very distinct. Yeah, we do that a lot in genealogy.
Wow, this is awesome. So I wanted to touch again, and everyone, Holly's got an article on this. We'll get it up soon on blendradioandtv.com, also in Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. So if you go to blendradioandtv.com, just type in Holly, and you'll find her articles on that. And if you want her articles and interviews that pertain to roots travel, going to destinations and libraries out of town to find out more about your family history, check out nationalparktraveling.com and type in Holly, and you'll see her articles there. Holly, I wanted to touch base because I know you've got all these online resources, books, charts, videos, how-to guides. And, of course, you come on our Third Friday Family History shows. But then you also have this weekly Ask the Pros. So can you give everybody some insight on that?
Well, our online video, they're on demand. So you can go through and look at, it's our Gen Teacher video classes. You can go through, and if something strikes your fancy, you just pay the fee, and it's on demand. As soon as you pay for it, you can watch it. And there's always a handout, most always a handout included. There might be a very few, but if there's not a handout, you don't need a handout. That's the only reason. But there's usually a handout. They can be anywhere from 8 to 80 pages with each class. And so there's a lot of information there. We have books, research guides that teach you how to use family search, how to do German research, how to do English, Scottish, Irish. We have how to use U.S. land and tax records. A lot of different books that are very specific to teach you how to use different record types. And most of them have photos, graphics included, so you can get an idea of what you're looking for. We have our Ask the Pros, which are broadcast live, and then they go into the archive so you can listen to them again later. But you can submit questions to us, and there's no fee for that. You just have to have a membership of our website, and we just We just require that because we don't want to be spammed with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And then
exactly.
you're all connected. That's the way to do things,
So you can ask questions, and then we answer them either in our newsletter or on our Ask the Pros, and there's no fee for that. If we choose your question and answer it, you just get all that help for free.
That's awesome. And Holly, the other thing I wanted to touch on, because I know we're in August now, but November is coming up real quick, and you have a special event November 18th through 23rd, the Family History Library Research Retreat. And I find this interesting, having now set foot in genealogy libraries. And when we were in Natchitoches, Louisiana, we've now been in 3. And
awesome.
The one, oh my gosh, Cammie Henry, I even texted you when we were there. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe, and they brought out these huge books of Cammie Henry. She made like scrapbooks of everything, and the newspaper recordings, and some of it was really hysterical. I'll send you photos. And I was just like, wow, where do you even start? And we interviewed, we had a conversation with a librarian, which you'll meet on a show soon. And it was like, you realize how you can go all over the place. And it was an interesting conversation, because she's like, well, what do you need to know? We're like, we don't know. We want to know what you do. You know what I mean? And I understand how you kind of there needs to be this language between you and the librarian to understand, so they can help you. So I realized setting foot in that conversation that, Nancy and I, we had no clue what we're talking about. So I think this retreat is a cool thing. Is this something that you have to be there in person, or is this something online again?
No, it's online. The retreat. Actually, we broadcast the classes online, so that if for some reason you can't make it to Salt Lake City, you can still learn the material that we teach. But the real benefit of the retreat is you come to Salt Lake City, the largest genealogical library in the world, that has records from many, many countries around the world, and expert genealogists that can help you. We're there to help you to do your research for 6 days, Monday through Saturday, and we help you look at the data that you have and ask you, what do you want to learn? Some people they have different reasons, the things they want to learn, and we'll help you work on that, and spend a whole week. And it's very cool because it's focused research. It's like you leave all the other roles, mom, sister, uncle, whatever
Grandma.
it is. You leave all, the boss at work, whatever. Yes, you leave all those roles behind, and you come and you focus on doing your family history, and we help you, each person that comes, with their own personal research. And
awesome.
People just make great strides when they can take 6 whole days and work on nothing else, and we just focus on that, and you learn a lot, and you make a lot of progress with the work, and you gain a lot of skill. That's the thing. You'll be able to go home and do more and understand the methodology.
Give you a foundation.
Right. Yeah, to speed up your work for you.
I love that.
Yeah. Everything works better and faster. It's like going to a conference for your work. You get knowledge, and specialized skill sets are taught to you, and it really helps.
Yeah, you get the answers sooner. Cool.
Holly, thank you so much for sitting in with us for the show today, and for your knowledge and input. It's always fascinating. You never know where these shows go, these conversations. It's just always fascinating. And today to me was like, wow, this is really cool. Everyone, you can keep up with Holly at FamilyHistoryExpos.com, her events, and of course, all of her online resources to help you trace your family roots. And, of course, keep up with us at BigBlendRadio.com. Our shows air Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sundays. We've got some exciting things coming down the pipeline. Woohoo! Special shows coming up. Holly, we got to talk. Anyway, Sunday we have another show airing. It's travel writer Debbie Stone shares her experience at Hilton Head Health, destination health resort that's been helping people make their wellness aspirations a reality for over 40 years out in Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. I got to give a shout out to South Carolina. It's getting a lot of press on our show today. So I think we need to make that another destination, Nancy, like pretty soon on our Love Your Parks tour.
I need to connect with them. Our motto is Family History Heals. And so the people are getting a lot of help out there, and learning how to do family history along with that good stuff
That's
is
awesome.
even frosting on the cake. Family history.
I love it. I love it.
And
so
and
we're
I
going to
think
play
that
a song.
Sophia would agree with that. With all that
I
she's done, I think it's helped her a lot.
I agree. I agree. We want to close the show with a special song, especially tied into what our conversation with Sophia Giza about the mountain builders of ancient America, her book. I want to play this song. It's and also what we were talking about with you, Holly, "Prayer for the Past." I know we've played with this before for you, but it's just a special song. It's by Everett Ozan from his album "As Things Could Be." And you can listen to his music and connect with him at ozanmusic.com. And so here it is, Prayer for the Past. Thank you so much, Holly. You have a good weekend.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.